a massacre in France. At least 77 are dead, including children, and 50 are wounded after a truck mowed down people during a celebration in France earlier today. France's president is calling this a terrorist attack. Here with reaction tonight is former Speaker of the House. Newt Gingrich is with us. Mr. Speaker, I don't want to really tie this into politics, but every issue America is now dealing with, every issue that we have discussed in recent months and years about the Islamization of Europe, about refugees, about immigration, about open borders, it seems to come together, and also political correctness and not recognizing radical Islamic terrorism as the enemy and evil in our time. From your perspective, what does this tragedy, this evil attack tonight mean for that conflict and debate?
Well, first of all, Sean, as you know, I was in Paris just last weekend talking with people who are deeply involved in trying to deal with the Iranian government and other sources of terrorism. And let me also say, Daniel Silva has a remarkable new novel called Black Widow, and the entire opening section is on the systematic Islamic attack on Jews in France, which is the worst it's been since the Nazis. So let me start with where I'm coming from, and let me be as blunt and as direct as I can be. Western civilization is in a war. We should, frankly, test every person from here who is of a Muslim background, and if they believe in Sharia, they should be deported. Sharia is incompatible with Western civilization. Modern Muslims who have given up Sharia, glad to have them as citizens, perfectly happy to have them next door. But we need to be fairly relentless about defining who our enemies are. Anybody who goes on a website favoring ISIS or Al-Qaeda or other terrorist groups, that should be a felony, and they should go to jail. Any organization which hosts such a website should be engaged in a felony. It should be closed down immediately. Our forces should be used to systematically destroy every Internet-based source, and frankly, if we can't destroy them through the Internet, we should destroy them with kinetic power, using various weapons, starting with predators, and just, frankly, just killing them. I am sick and tired of being told that the wealthiest, most powerful civilization in history, all of Western civilization, is helpless in the face of a group of medieval barbarians who, for example, recently burned 20 young women to death, burned them to death, because they wouldn't have sex with them. A group which beheaded recently in the Philippines 2 Canadian businessmen. And we're told to be reasonable, to be passive, to not judge. Well, I just want to tell you tonight, everybody who watches this video, this is the fault of Western elites who lack the guts to do what is right, to do what is necessary, and to tell us the truth, and that starts with Barack Obama.
That's a powerful statement. I agree wholeheartedly. Let me go back to the beginning of your statement. You said Western civilization is at war, and you said Sharia is incompatible with Western civilization. Here's my question, because it goes to the heart of the refugee debate. Statements made by Donald Trump that until we're able to vet people coming from countries that practice Sharia, they shouldn't be allowed into the country. So it's a big part of our national security debate heading into the election. So my question is, if you have a clash of cultures and people believe they can tell women how to dress, whether they can work or drive or go to school, and they treat women like second-class citizens, and you can't build a temple and you can't build a Christian church, and so they're against women, and gays get murdered for being gay, so there's attacks against women, gays, Jews, and Christians. How do we ascertain, how do you possibly ascertain whether or not that person really wants assimilation, really wants a new life, or whether or not they want to expand that caliphate, which is what we're at war against?
Look, the first step is you have to ask them the questions. The second step is you have to monitor what they're doing on the Internet. The third step is, let me be very clear, you have to monitor the mosques. I mean, if you're not prepared to monitor the mosque, this whole thing is a joke. Where do you think the primary source of recruitment is? Where do you think the primary source of indoctrination is? You've got to look at the madrasas. If you're a school which is teaching Sharia, you ought to expel it from the country. We have to understand, we are behaving as though we are insane. We're like sheep, wondering why the wolves keep killing us. These people are opposed to our way of life. They are opposed to our value system. They are opposed to our various religions. They're opposed to the whole concept of freedom, and they're very honest about it. They tell us what they want to do. And again, I just want to cite, because it's so remarkable, I mean, Daniel Silva's new book, Black Widow, which is a novel, the opening couple chapters are so scary in being exactly what you just saw tonight in Nice that I can't recommend it too highly.
You know, there's a propaganda magazine by Al-Qaeda, and in 2010, our intelligence officials drew from it. It called on followers to use trucks as killing machines and mow down civilians. And Al-Qaeda and ISIS share the exact same techniques. You know, a very prominent national security figure once pulled me aside recently and said to me, Europe is gone. And he was explaining 88 Sharia courts in Great Britain. He said no-go zones are real. Separate and apart, not a part of assimilating with European society, and that Europe is going to be subject to attack after attack after attack, and America is probably 10, 15 to 20 years behind in making the exact same mistakes. Is he right in that assertion?
Well, the director of French intelligence said yesterday, ironically, that Europe's on the edge of a civil war, and I think that's probably true. You look at the number of rapes and assaults in Germany last year, which only now is coming out. Over 1,200 women raped and assaulted in Germany by people who are here from places like Syria. And you begin to realize that the whole elite media, the whole elite political class, has been desperately trying to keep the lid on the truth of where we are and what our situation is. Again, let's take a couple of simple examples. The Sharia courts in Britain should be outlawed. Why should you tolerate a religiously imposed court and as opposed to the civil society all of us agreed to be part of? That's a total repudiation of everything that goes back to the Magna Carta and the whole concept of English common law. Similarly, here in the United States, why should we tolerate a single person coming here who doesn't want to become an American? When they say, well, the guy in Orlando, for example, who killed people at the gay nightclub, he's an American citizen. Fine. His father was committed to a radical version in Afghanistan. He said he was delighted at 9/11. I mean, the minute somebody says, I'm delighted at 9/11 that Americans were killed, I think we should put them under deep surveillance. And the second, that's strike one. And I'd be like in a 2-strike, not a 3-strike model. And I think you either kick them out of the country, and people tell me you can't do that to American citizens. We are in a war. We had better rethink the rules, or we are going to lose the war.
Mr. Speaker, let me ask you this. In light of all of these recent attacks, in light of Belgium and San Bernardino and Orlando and Paris, not once, but not twice, but now 3 times in this most recent attacks, you think back to in the beginning of the Obama administration, overseas contingency operations, man-caused disasters, workplace violence, all of these ridiculous phrases, and then a policy that gives $150 billion to the #1 state sponsor of terror, which is Iran. They pull out of Iraq and create a vacuum and opening for ISIS to have financial support through the oil there. They never follow through in Syria. You look at the series of decisions, that the reluctance and resistance, as mysterious as it is, to even say radical Islamic terrorism. And is this now the predictable result? Have we gone back to a pre-9/11 mindset?
Well, let me say 2 things. First of all, everyone watching us should read General Mike Flynn's book, Field of Fire, because he really outlines exactly the problem with the Obama administration, but also, candidly, the problem with the Bush administration. I encountered as early as 2002 and 2003, the State Department was saying, oh, please don't talk about radical Islamists. Please don't talk about Islamic supremacists. So the State Department, which is probably one of the 2 worst departments in the United States, the other being the Veterans Administration, the State Department is totally hopeless. And even under the Bush administration, they followed a policy where they didn't tell the truth. Remember, it's President Bush who says that Islam is a religion of peace, which is baloney. It's not that Islamists are necessarily evil, but they're not necessarily a religion of peace.